to the Dream 100 Show, the epicenter of influence, collaboration, and exponential growth. You're about to discover the power of relationships. Dream 100 relationships. And you're one relationship away from a totally different business and life. This is your host, Michael Tasner.
Hey there, and welcome to this week's edition of the Dream 100 Show. Today I want to talk about everyone's favorite hot topic, and that is all things AI or artificial intelligence. Now, every day I am seeing new articles, new tools, tactics, predictions as to where things are going to go when it comes to AI. And there's a couple of things that I'll share before we really get into the meat of what I want to teach you today. So the first thing is, AI is going to disrupt a lot of what you do every single day. There's a tactic or a strategy that I use, and it's very, very basic. And it goes something like this. When you're looking around, whether you're out and about at a mall, you're at the bank, credit union, you're at a mastermind event, it doesn't really matter. But you start to just observe things around you. And you use a phrase like, oh, isn't that interesting? Where you're starting to hear things from people. You're starting to see certain things. Maybe all of a sudden you're seeing everyone on a particular app. You're seeing people start to behave a certain way. You're going to start to notice some of those nuances around you. And one of those big nuances is that, ChatGTP, which we're not going to focus on today, spoiler alert, but I would say, isn't that interesting that ChatGTP, a year or two ago, wasn't really even in conversation. And now I really can't go a day without hearing ChatGTP. And that's not in my normal marketing hat. That's in my average day to day. I've heard about ChatGTP often on radio shows. Like instead of saying, well, go to Google it, they'll say, oh, go ask ChatGTP, for example. So I would say, well, isn't that interesting? And you want to start to notice these things. And as you start to notice them, you're going to very rapidly see that AI is already disrupting things, and it's only going to continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger. If we look at one of the recent announcements, we're talking about a week ago with Elon Musk talking about all these, I think it's called the Optimus robot. And they're not talking about having these robots come out in 10 years. They're talking about a year, maybe two, to where you literally have a robot that can watch your kids, pick up your groceries, make you food. Like, it's coming, and it's getting faster and faster and faster. So my first action step for you is to pause as you're going throughout your day. And as you start to see things, I want you to start to be a bit more curious and say something like, isn't that interesting? And I want you to start to take note of these things, because the things that you start to see on a smaller scale are going to become bigger and bigger and bigger. I have a little notebook where I write these things down. So for example, I was at, I can't remember which airport it was, but they had, I think it was the Costa Coffee, but it was a good coffee brand. And you could order it from an app, and it was all done through a machine. Now, you might say, well, I've seen that before. Okay, well, if you were to pause and be a little bit more curious, so well, isn't that interesting? Well, what if that's how coffee is done over the next couple of years? That people making coffee starts to move to be a practice of the past, and it's all being done by robots and through apps and things like that. So what this will do is it starts to cause you to do some thinking, some pausing, and some reflection. So point number one is that you have to fully understand that AI will completely continue to disrupt everything that you're doing in your personal life and at your business. That's the mindset shift that you have to make. Now, that doesn't mean that AI is coming for everyone's jobs. It's going to be the people that are able to leverage it to get better and better at their jobs, get faster. So where instead of putting their time in writing social media posts that they were doing by hand and just thinking of things from a creative standpoint, well, that now can be done using various AI tools. In addition to the pictures, the videos, in like 30 minutes. You could have an entire month. You could even have an entire year planned. So great. Now, does that replace your job, or does that then allow you to do more of the higher level thinking and the strategy and things like that? But here is my bigger action piece for you today. I want you to start to go through your business, and I want you to start in whatever of these 4 quadrants you would like. And I want you to start to go through and look at all of the different processes you're doing on a day-to-day basis, a weekly basis, and a monthly basis. So the 4 quadrants are marketing, accounting and finance, systems, and team. So I'm going to give you a couple examples in each, but what I'm looking for is in those quadrants, I'm not looking for you to necessarily try and figure out what's going on with AI or how can AI replace those. All that I'm looking for you to do as step number 1, pick one of the quadrants. So let's pick, I'm not going to go to the most obvious one of marketing. Let's go with team. And you're just going to start to write down all of the different things that you're doing or your staff is doing on a regular basis. So for example, writing job descriptions, posting on platforms like Indeed, scanning resumes, sourcing resumes, conducting interview calls, conducting post-interview calls, sending personality profiles and tests. We use Colby. And then when you can get into more of the other element with team, that is a little bit systems, but like sending payroll and validating payroll. And you want to just go through all of the different things. You're going to make that list. The next one, you're going to go to a different quadrant. Let's say you're going to the systems quadrant. What are some of these system things you're doing? Documenting and writing standard operating procedures, revamping your employee handbook on a regular basis, preparing your 3-year strategy plan, updating the strategy plan once a quarter, hosting weekly calls to go through issues like IDS call, which is a EOS thing, L10, leadership team meeting. IDS stands for Identify, Discuss, and Solve. And you're going to go through. And again, what you're not looking to do here is try and figure out which things AI can replace. All that I'm looking for you to do is to really have that holistic view of everything that's going on across your organization. Then go to the next quadrant. So it's accounting. So you're entering in transactions, you're downloading things from the different credit cards, you're classifying things a certain way, you're applying checks and balances, you're updating the profit and loss and the balance sheet. What else do you do there? You're paying bills a certain way. How do you do that? And then marketing. Marketing, to me, it's the easy one to start to then figure out from an AI standpoint. But marketing is going to have a ton of things that you're doing on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis. Writing new content, so blog posts, coming up with social media ideas, social media graphics, producing new videos, designing landing pages, writing email copy, producing books. I don't do that daily, but I'm doing that throughout the week. I'm writing content for books, doing podcasts like this. My marketing list, quite frankly, probably is longer than everything else combined. But every organization is going to be a little bit different. When you have that list, you're going to start to slice and dice it in a couple of different ways. So first, I want you to identify with a star which of those activities are the highest of value to the organization. So which ones, you're like, Michael, this needs to be on point. Like this needs to be perfect. Maybe it's the P&L sheet, having an amazing leadership meeting each week, having great email follow-up content. Like what are the ones that are the most valuable to the business? Then I want you to start to add some other layers to the list. I want you to add a layer of how long do some of these things take? So maybe the social media content, to do it for a month, it takes 20 hours. Maybe it's 5 hours, maybe it's 50. I've seen some organizations that have a full-time social media person. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but when we talk about the final step of where you can then apply AI, I can promise you that AI can replace everything that a social media person does very, very rapidly, including being 100% on brand. It's crazy. But I want you to have the ones that are the most valuable to your business. And then I want to see the rest of them that they're still valuable, but they're not life or death. They're not like, oh my gosh, this has to be perfect. And with those time estimates, that then can start to give you a flavor of how long you're actually spending. And what I want you to do is, for now, I want you to put all the most valuable things into one basket and all the other things into another. And for now, until you get into the framework of leveraging various AI tools and technology, I don't want you to try and automate or use AI for your most valuable things. I want you to start to take baby steps. I want you to walk before you run. And I want you to try and automate and leverage AI for some of these other things that they're still important, but they're maybe the lower level things. Now, the easiest way to do this, and you're going to be surprised by my answer, possibly, I use a tool called Claude, which is very similar to ChatGPT, but we'll just say ChatGPT for now. You're going to start to take these and put them in an order, and let's say social media content, because that's just an easy one. You could go to Claude or ChatGPT and say, I'm looking at automating my content production, my videos, my graphics. Can you tell me 5 AI tools that you would suggest I look at? And you're going to get back a bunch of tools. You can go on to the next. Is there any AI tools that exist today that can help with easily reconciling my books? Can you tell me those? And you continue to go down the list. And for me, I like to pick one area in each of my 4 quadrants that is labor intensive, but it's not a high value add to my organization. And I like to find a way to have an AI tool replace it. Now, I use at any given time between 20 and 25 different AI tools. There's a ton of them. And I could rattle off a ton of them, but the challenge is every person's individual situation is a little bit different. Everyone has different things. You might be really heavy on the financial side and want to push more tools there. There's a great tool called Sequence that allows you to have money flow into different buckets and baskets automatically. Money could come to one account and then siphon over to different places and have different rules and things like that. There's some organizations that move money every single day. That tool could replace that particular task. But I want you to identify those that, again, that are ideally labor intensive, they're helping, but they're not like, oh my gosh, this is mission critical. And when you're able to then start to move those things off your team's plate, those higher value items, the strategy, the strategic thinking, the having one-on-one conversations, those kinds of projects and tasks can now boil all the way up to the top. And your team can start to be putting their time into the things that are actually going to move your business. And that's it. That is all that I'm looking for you to do to start to move the needle. Now, every quarter, I do this exact same exercise because what we find is then something else pops up that we didn't have on a list that all of a sudden is taking 5-10 hours a week. Like I do a ton of presentations. Well, there's a tool called Gamma that literally I can copy and paste some information and it makes amazing slides and charts and things like that in seconds. There's another amazing tool called Napkin. Similar outputs, like I can give it bullets and all of a sudden I have a beautiful presentation. I used to spend 5-10 hours a week on presentations. It's done in 30 minutes. So you want to make sure that you're auditing this stuff on a regular basis and starting to replace as much stuff as you can with AI. But start with the lower level stuff until you start to get familiar with how these things work. And you're going to find very quickly that it's only as good as the input you put in. You can't say, make me a beautiful spreadsheet about mortgage rates if you don't tell it really what you're looking for. I want to see the mortgage rates in the US of how they've looked for the last 10 years, make the chart very colorful, ignore these 5. You've got to give it good inputs, but you won't know that stuff until you start playing. And when you start playing, even doing that, even replacing 1 or 2 kind of mundane or boring tasks that have to get done with AI, you'll start to be well on your way towards moving in the right direction with AI so that over the next 6, 12, 18 months, you'll be able to introduce more and more tools and you'll be farther ahead of the curve. Get out there, start using more AI than just a couple of tools on a monthly basis. I want to see you leveraging a couple of tools on a daily basis so that you can spend your time working on the business, not in it. Michael Tasner signing off. Good morning, good afternoon, good night. I'll see you next week.
Yes.